Good morning, everybody. Uh, Actually, I must say good morning to everybody participating from the US, Canada, and Latin Americas. Good afternoon and good evening to everybody else who is joining from around the world, including people in India. I am based out of Bangalore, India, and I'm speaking from there today. It is indeed a privilege for me to be discussing, this important topic of leadership and innovation management through this virtual conference track of the Women in Engineering Leadership Conference. So thank you to IEEE and to Women in Engineering for making this happen. Let me start by telling you a little bit about myself so that you can get the context of why I'm saying what I'm saying and what the overall context of my talk is about. I have been with the tech industry for around 22 years. I am an innovator myself, an innovation management expert, and a technologist, and also what I call as an intrapreneur. That is somebody who's an entrepreneur within a large organization. And the reason I say that is because I was responsible for setting up several new technology and business practices within my last organization, which is TCS. Until March this year, I was working with consultancy services. Many of these areas were like storage networking, supply chain for high-tech companies, Internet of Things, software product engineering services, etc. Now, the next question is, why do I want to talk about innovation management and leadership in a forum dedicated to women leaders? Simply because both are important topics in my opinion, and they are linked to the fact that diversity is an extremely important element in fast-tracking innovation within an organization. And one aspect of diversity is diverse viewpoints, diverse ways of thinking. Women leaders tend to think differently from their men counterparts, and their presence in groups actually leads to a more collaborative and sometimes disruptive innovations. They also bring different leadership styles. And therefore, because of all these characteristics, women leaders, women engineers, women technologists, women business experts, they play a very important role in innovation ecosystem of any organization. Today, I'm going to talk about three aspects of innovation management. First, I will share my insights into the needs and mechanisms for innovation governance in a company. Then I will talk about the leader's role in creating a stronger culture for innovation within the organization. Subsequently, we can then discuss what should be your and my role, basically every individual's role in innovation management, both in the organizational context and in the overall ecosystem context. So the first question that comes up is, what do you mean by innovation governance? Basically, if a company has mechanisms to sense, channel, prioritize, and act effectively on new and path-breaking concepts, ideas, business models, products, etc., then the company has some form of governance in place to ensure this. It gives you that sense that something is working. There is a process, there is a governance which is in place. Think of it this way. If the youngest and the most inexperienced employee of the organization comes up and he makes a proposal that the company should invest in a specific technology, a specific business area, a specific business model, he may say, these are the points, this is why I believe this is going to work. Now the question is, does somebody hear him out? If that voice is heard, let's say that voice is not heard, and it is not even subject to evaluation even once, then I would say that you do not have any form of innovation governance in place, irrespective of what your company is claiming. On the other hand, if the voice of that young associate who joined just very recently actually reaches right up to the CEO and possibly even the board of directors based on the merit of his or her recommendation, then the company surely has some innovation governance in place. There are some mechanisms in the company which are working. Now, hearing and listening to an idea which is new for the company is good, but this is not enough, right? I mean, we all know that the entire cycle of innovation has to go through. So the company needs to have mechanisms to pilot new ideas, mechanisms to measure success of pilots, and then some provision to incubate these new business ideas, which could be business offerings, it could be new service lines, it could be new products, whatever that business idea is all about. There has to be a mechanism to incubate it and then take it to market in a bigger way to scale it out. Now, of course, despite all the processes that may be in place within an organization, the vision of the leadership team also makes a lot of difference. So it may so happen that a company CEO may still say no to a very important idea. For several reasons. It can happen because of several reasons. It may happen because he may be waiting for the gardeners and the foresters of this world to say that there is a trend in the market within the context of which this idea fits it before he takes a call. Right? So what is the market telling you? If you are looking out into the market, you will only get instrumental fitment of ideas. That's my viewpoint. Now let us take the example of Google. Why Google? Because it's easy to talk about Google. They are known, quite extensively as an innovative company. Now, if Google had asked an analyst firm how much business sense it makes for them to invest in a driverless car or the Google glasses or any of the technologies at the time that they did start these investments, I'm not sure what response they would have received. So it's fairly simple. When you're working on something that is futuristic and it is likely to create new markets, new market paradigms, you probably need to understand the overall ecosystem associated with the concept that you're working on and have to work towards influencing as much of that ecosystem as you possibly can. And especially if the innovation is disruptive in nature, it's unlikely that you will get the kind of pointers that you're looking for from the market itself. Today, when everybody is on the bandwagon called the Internet of Things, suddenly a lot of solutions that Google has start to seem connected, right? And not only connected, they also seem to be carrying the ability to support each other's respective market positioning, creating a more spiral effect. Now, it is easy to take Google's example since everybody talks about them. But the same concept applies to any company that is trying to invest in a futuristic idea. It requires vision. And coming back to the governance issue, if the idea is good, and it is so good that it is taken up right to the board level and not merely viewed by the CEO, then like they say, many heads are always better than one head, right? That's only one aspect. Now, since we, whatever I just talked about is essentially saying that, innovation management to some extent for organizations is also about understanding and managing the ecosystem around the idea and understanding and validating the potential, while the market is evolving around you. However, no amount of innovation management is likely to get you anywhere if the leadership team lacks vision or has temporary blindness. Every company has that, there is no company in this world that can say, we selected every right idea, and there are instances when companies have to look back and say, oh, this is something we should have taken up. And I'm a great fan of IBM. I say that, yet I'm taking an example from the past. There was a time when IBM leadership refused to accept the fact that there could be a strong business case for a photocopy machine, right? We all know the story. And Xerox was born as a result, right? I mean, I'm just taking an IBM example. There are tons of examples out there, and it's just a convenient example to take, very often talked about. Today, companies like, coming back to the governance issue, if you look at companies like GE, General Electric, Procter & Gamble, Telefonica, Delphi Automotive, AMD, they all have innovation or equivalent committees on their boards, right? Just look at the names that I just told you. These are all companies from very diverse industries, right? I'm not taking examples only from the industry. And each of these successful companies that I just named out, each one of them has a innovation or equivalent committee on their board. That means that they have people on the board who are looking at long-term innovation investments. And why should they be doing that? Because long-term innovation investments have risks associated with them. These risks need to be managed, mitigated, and balanced, right? At the same time, risk management does not mean that a destructive idea with high risk, but which is potentially game-changing for the company, needs to be overlooked. So maintaining that fine balance, keeping a view of the long-term business viability of the organization is a very important. We all know that's an important responsibility for the board. So having this kind of a innovation focus on the board surely, adds an extra dimension of governance when it comes from an innovation management point. So it helps if the board is an overseer of the innovation management practices within the organization. So that was a little bit about innovation governance. Now, let us talk a little bit about the leader's role in creating a stronger culture of innovation within the organization. So one can say, if you want to understand this, a better way to understand is to look at what are the characteristics of very vibrant and innovative friendly workplaces, right? What are the typical characteristics? So let's say somebody comes up with a bright idea, right? If they're in the right kind of innovative environment, they would know what to do if they had a great business idea. They would know who to reach out to, which place to log that idea into, assuming that there is some formal mechanism to log that idea. If they want to experiment, do some proof of concept, they would know what kind of resources are immediately available and what kind of resources can be sought through a basic business case. Nobody in such a business environment, nobody, including that kid who joined yesterday, would feel insignificant and therefore hesitant to voice their opinion or idea. In such an environment, we are less likely to hear these words. But we have always done it this way here. We've always done it like this. Why are you recommending something different? We already tried this. Or worst of all, saying that that's a stupid idea. That's the worst thing that you can do to really clobber any innovation potential within the organization. It is also said, that and it's not just said, it's been proven that the best way a leader can influence the culture is through setting their own example, right? So if the leader encourages a debate, discussion, invites diverse ideas, then that same culture is likely to propagate to different levels of the organization. Yet, just setting your own example may not be enough. There are a lot of cultural aspects that can be gradually shifted within the organization towards a more desirable state for innovation. Now, in order to say, what is this desirable state that we talked about a few characteristics associated with how people tend to feel more comfortable voicing their opinion in such environments. But let us also look at the traits of innovative teams. What kind of traits do innovative teams exhibit? So one thing which they exhibit very, very consistently across different groups that I have looked at is they exhibit curiosity and they challenge assumptions all the time. In most cases, either consciously or subconsciously, they have trained themselves, to look beyond the realms of existing assumptions. A concept which we know more popularly as thinking out of the box, right? I mean, it's thinking out of the box comes more easily if you are used to challenging assumptions. And to be able to challenge assumptions, you need to realize that there are assumptions in place. And do you know who are, who our best role models are when it comes to curiosity and challenging of assumptions? Children. Children are the best role models when it comes to admitting curiosity and challenging assumptions. They want to know everything, right? Always asking questions. They also don't believe that any question is so stupid that it cannot be asked. Actually, I firmly believe that all technical and business teams, if they could exhibit this trait, then they would be very well off. In fact, the most successful and innovative teams actually do exhibit these traits. Children also challenge assumptions, right? In fact, they are not born with any assumptions, right? And it's the society and the environment that instills assumptions in their mind. Just to bring this point, more clarity to this point, I want to tell you about a story, something I've reminded from a few years ago. A friend of mine went to her daughter's prospective school for what was her admission interview. This was for kindergarten, okay? And just in case you are wondering, yes, in India, there are schools which do conduct interviews for admission, even at that level. So this kid was asked a lot of questions by the teacher. And then the teacher showed the picture of a watermelon to the kid. "What is this?" the teacher asked. The kid looked at it and said, "Watermelon." "Do you like watermelons?" "Oh, I love watermelons." So on the way back from school, uh, the slightly puzzled mother asks her daughter, "Dear, why did you say you loved watermelons? You never eat them when I ask you to." So the kid is equally puzzled, right? And she answers back, "Mom, I said I liked watermelons." See how beautiful a watermelon is. It is green on the outside, it has red and with black patterns on the inside. It's such a beautiful fruit. I really like it. I just don't like to eat it. She didn't ask me whether I liked eating watermelon. So the whole point of the story is, that there are assumptions built even in the way we speak, right? Now one could always argue that this is a language semantics issue here. But truly, if we pay a little deeper attention to this story, we must realize that there are assumptions that in conversations which we build in, when ideas are put forward, when viewpoints are put forward, that everybody is speaking at the same context, right? That's not necessarily true, and that's the first step to understanding different viewpoints, understanding that there are different ways in people can express ideas, and very importantly, understand that there are differences in assumptions that we make when we are proposing something or negating something, and therefore it becomes extremely important to keep an open mind and try to keep as many assumptions out of our mind when we are taking decisions. Now, teams and people who are able to work and think outside the boundaries of these assumptions create more innovative products and solutions, and they create innovative products and solutions more often than the others. This is a proven fact. And just to demonstrate, that this works not just for children but for organizational teams as well, I'm going to recount another incident. I'm reminded of a time when we were looking for a very critical solution as a part of my team for one of our customers. Incidentally, the most disruptive and the guy who was always very critical of every idea that was presented made a very remarkable recommendation for a solution to that problem. Nobody else came up with the solution. Since he was relatively junior, some of the senior guys in my team asked him to keep quiet. Right? I happened to overhear the solution and the idea that he was recommending, and I happened to prompt him and ask him to explain more. Right? The rest was history. We had a very successful solution developed, rolled out, and the customer was very happy. We got 100% positive customer satisfaction feedback. In fact, incidents like this have actually, prompted me to change my thinking style, my working style. And during the course of my career, I have come to respect the naysayers and the constant critics that we have in our teams. They, I believe, are required in a healthy, innovative environment. Definitely much more than the yes men and the yes women, right? Because they force you to think through the problem much more critically and also force you sometimes to come up with alternate solutions, right? And that is adding to the innovation coefficient of the team. And now, today is the digital era, right? I mean, there is so much happening in the world. Every business is looking at technology solutions. There is a huge buzz around cloud, mobility, social media, Internet of Things, and how different kinds of technologies are coming together to create integrated solutions for the customer. This environment is very, very complex, right? So today, how is the role of solutioning changing as well? It's important to understand that, right? Because that helps us understand in today's context what are the kind of teams that are required for creating more innovative solutions to the business problems, the environmental problems, the technical problems of this world. And I'm of the opinion that since we are looking at multifunctional solutioning, for complex solutions which are a mixture of multiple domain, technology, and business requirements, so we need people who have the skills to interpret multiple technologies, business or domain views, and then to integrate them, right? So we are now not talking about the individual expert in a particular domain or a technology area, but we're talking about somebody who's more like a specialist generalist, right? So what is a specialist generalist in this context? Essentially, he or she is somebody with pie-shaped skill sets. T. It's not a T. It's a pie with two, or maybe more legs, right? Which means deeper expertise in 2 or 3 areas and generic expertise along a wide variety of subjects. I tend to use the term thought integrators for such people, since they also need to have extremely good communication and empathetic listening skills so that they can weave the knowledge of a group together. So there's no point in having multi-domain and tech experts sitting in a team if they cannot understand what the other person is saying, right? And I remember working on a predictive analytics, my team working on a predictive analytics solution for underground cables for power, distribution companies. And we had a guy from the power sector, a guy who was a statistical expert, and a guy who was a hardcore programmer, a system engineering level programmer, and a few other people in that team. And the first challenge that we faced till we got an architect thought integrator into the picture was that everybody was expert in their domain, but inter-expertise integration was not happening for the purpose of deriving a solution. And until you have that thought integrator, there's a term in Hindi called sutradhar, which is used very commonly. So until we had that thought integrator in the picture, we could not derive a solution. Which brings us to the next aspect of innovative teams. Collaboration is important, right, for innovation. Now, of course, organizations need to create an environment where collaboration is encouraged, and that is the first basic requirement. As leaders, we have to promote collaboration, reward people when they are collaborating together so that it becomes a habit, it becomes something that people want to do. So that's what comes from the organization side. But what are the other ground rules that could be laid out for saying how do you ensure success through collaboration? So the first rule is that collaboration works only if the output is win-win. Some participants in the collaboration ecosystem may gain more, Some people may gain less. And when I say some participants, it could be, business units within the same organization. It could be people in the partner network. If you're going beyond the organization, it could mean individuals if they're bringing in their individual expertise onto the table. So somebody may gain more, somebody may gain less, but everybody gains. It has to be a win-win scenario, right? There's nothing new about what I'm saying. This is also a fundamental rule for sound and good business, right? The second point is that collaboration requires a level of honesty and genuine connect to be really successful. A level of trust is required between the participants, whether these are organizational entities to organizations or individuals, right? And while the fundamental unit of collaboration is linked to this capacity to connect and trust, the dealings or outputs of a collaboration need to follow certain basic business principles. They need to be documented well in some format. The respective goals, the respective inputs, the respective output expectation, everything needs to be very clearly outlined. Collaboration works when the fuzziness around who is expected to do what is reduced, right? But it is not reduced, made so stringent in a manner that there is no room for innovativeness. So it's a delicate balance that needs to be maintained. And the basic focus for collaboration has to be to drive, to be driven by a higher common agenda for all the participants. That's very important. If entities do not have a higher common agenda, then they don't have any reason to collaborate. Now, coming back to while we talk about collaboration, we talk about innovation, traits which are important for successful collaborative innovation. Let us come back a little bit to the governance side, right, and also to the aspect of how the innovation should be viewed from an organizational level. So, Clayton Christensen, has talked about 3 types of innovation, right? Incremental innovation, then innovation that which could be in your day-to-day work and you're improving, incrementing some process, some business a solution, a product, or a service, and this results in constant improvement, right? It could be something which changes the reach of your product. You bring about the innovation that changes the reach of your project. That's like a platform level innovation. And then disruptive innovation, which allows you to address completely new market opportunities, right? Something which you may not have focused on before. The kind of effort that an organization needs to put into these different kinds of innovation is different. In incremental innovation, it is limited. In platform innovation, there's a certain bigger amount of effort that is required. And disruptive innovation, phenomenal effort may be required. May not be, but usually may be, right? Similarly, the risk associated with implementing each of these innovations may be high. Now, when you talk about innovations which may be incremental, intermediate, or disruptive, the risk may be low, medium, or high. Or you could also be looking at the amount of effort, the timeline by which you would be ready with the solution. It could be short term, which could be like in a couple of months, or medium term, which could be in a year, 6 months to a year's time frame, or long term, which could be a 5-year or a 3-year plan, right? So the nature of innovations may vary. The investment amount may vary. The risk associated may vary. The impact to the organization, the timeline of impact may vary. So in this complex combination of different attributes associated with innovation, a decision needs to be taken as to when and how to invest in which idea. Right? Now, if I'm going to add another dimension of complexity to what I just said. So you may have invested wisely in an idea which is scheduled for medium term with the medium amount of risk, and you have taken the call and invested in it. But the market readiness within the external market, the market is not ready for your product when you're ready to launch it, right? So the timing of your investment also is a critical aspect. So somewhere within the innovation governance aspect within an organization, the processes need to include uh, clear understanding of what is the innovation portfolio of the organization. How much of the investment is in short term, medium term, and long term? How much of the investment is in what, which is essentially saying how much of the investment is in Horizon 1, Horizon 2, and Horizon 3. So, what is your portfolio? And the second is saying how does the market readiness cycles actually match to each of these investments? And do I do a frequent review of this against the investments that are being made? How are the risks associated with each innovation investment changing over a period of time? What is the review mechanism for that? What is the mechanism for shutting down an idea? Just because I've invested so much into an idea, but today, the feedback from the market is that I'm foreseeing that this is not going to give me good returns at the time of launch that we are planning. What is the decision to shut it down? When does that decision happen? So all these aspects associated with innovation management are actually essentially process and portfolio management issues, and they need to be considered. Coming back to the last point now, what should be your and my role in innovation management? You and me means every practitioner within the organization. Does everybody have a role, first of all? When I ask that question, when I do these talks internally within my organization or in more disparate groups, mostly the answer is, everybody says, they can guess why I'm asking that question, and they will say, no, everybody has a role to play in innovation. But if you go one step further and ask people, what is the role that you have played in innovation within your organization until now, and what role do you foresee yourself playing, right? Then it becomes lazy. Few people are able to answer, others, are a little unclear as to how that can really happen. I believe that every individual within the organization has a role to play. I come from a service company background, so I'll give you an example from a service company and not a product example. But when teams are working on, let's say, maintaining an application for the customer. Now, there may be somebody who's managing the relationship with the customer. There is somebody who is a program manager, and there are people there's somebody who's a technical architect, overall leader technically for the group, and then there are people who are managing various modules within that system. One could say that the best ideas are likely to come from from the relationship manager or the product manager, the program manager, sorry, or the technical architect. But in reality, it's the guy who's working on that module, on that piece of code, who understands what are the technical challenges happening at that level. He may notice a challenge, and if he chooses to focus on it, he may actually come back with a recommendation which can then enable a complete process change or a complete application architecture change for the customer, benefiting the customer. The knowledge that is available at that level is not available at the senior levels, right? People who are doing program management or high level architecture definition and so on. Not to undermine what the people can at the architect or the program manager or even the business unit head level, what they can do. But what I'm trying to say is that the impact that you can create at different levels is different, and you do not want to let go of the impact at any level. So irrespective of the level of a person in an organization, he or she has a role to play. and a very important role to play in innovation management. What is the other role we can play as leaders, right? The very important role that we can play as leaders is that we encourage diverse viewpoints within our teams. We identify the right kind of people who are likely to enable multifunctional solutioning if that is the need of the day. We can encourage healthy debate, right? Diverse viewpoints, even if those are uncomfortable discussions, because if we believe that it's important to have those uncomfortable discussions, because something new may come out of that discussion. If we have that belief, then we will be actually supporting the innovation cause in a big way. As leaders, we can also ensure that every discussion has a critic, right? I mean, I don't know, it's not a two-way discussion happening right now, but how many of you would have walked into meetings and as a leader of the group made recommendations and then wondered why, everybody, when everybody says, okay, yes, great idea, how do you feel? At least when it happens to me, I don't feel great, I feel worried, because unless something that I'm recommending has gone through enough discussion and debate, it is worrying for me. An idea which has gone, or a concept, or an implementation, or a recommendation, if it has gone through enough discussion and debate, then the chances are that we would have addressed many of the risks associated with that idea, right? But if there has been no discussion or debate around that topic, then I'm very worried. In fact, what I would do in such scenarios is that I would purposely pick up one person and say, you are the critic, you can only speak negative. Don't say yes to what everybody is saying. And now please exercise your brains to come up with negations to whatever is being recommended. Right? But it is best if you have a natural critic in the team. If not, then that is probably a good idea. Sort of get into that format. So we talked about three things, right? We talked about the role of innovation governance, right? What should be the innovation governance within an organization? We talked about the characteristics of innovative teams. We went back a little bit on what should be the overall governance aspects to be considered, what should be the various parameters associated with innovation that need to be considered, and then what you and me can do in our respective roles in innovation management. I think we'll take a pause and see if there are any questions here. I see a question from Twitter. How does one measure the success of innovation management initiatives within the organization? That's an interesting question. Short answer to probably what requires a much longer discourse is that I talked a little bit about Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3 investments, and I talked about the level of risk associated with innovation. I also talked about the market readiness for an innovative service, product, or solution. Now, if there is a measurement of all these aspects happening, right? Then at periodic intervals, when we are evaluating where we are, right, and taking stock of the situation, that is the first level of what should I say? First measure of the fact that innovation management is working within the organization. Another measure could be how many ideas are generated within the organization, how diverse are those ideas, how diverse groups are contributing to that idea, how many different kinds of ideas are reaching up to senior levels, how many ideas are stifled and don't go beyond a certain level, and if there are any meritful ideas which are left behind, then it's a negative. That's another way to measure. And then finally, the best measure of innovation management is the success of the organization. A successful organization, which is introducing many new products or services or solutions to the market through its innovation process. That's the ultimate measure of cost, right? I mean, the revenue that is coming in and uh, the then the third measure is, the culture of the organization. What are you doing for the culture? What does your uh, people feedback say about you? In terms of how many people want to work in your organization, especially the kind of people that are, I describe the term thought integrators, right? Multifunctional experts. If they want to join your organization, you must be doing something good. So that's another measure. So there are very different measures that can be implemented. It depends on the vision of the company and the kind of innovation portfolio you're looking at for yourself. So there's another question which says, considering that innovation is about radical thinking without any boundaries, isn't innovation management an oxymoron? Okay. That's a question which is asked pretty frequently, and I think um, I was telling somebody that I have written a book on innovation management called Innovation Magic: The Science and Art of Innovation Management. And the person said, but isn't that an oxymoron? Why should you manage innovation? Innovation is supposed to be free flowing, right? I think when we talk about innovation management, it is about creating that free flowing culture. So it's not an oxymoron actually. These are two different things. Innovation management is about creating the right environment uh, let's say, in an organizational context within the organization, so that innovation can thrive. It's not about throttling, or controlling a particular the development process or the proof of concept process, just enabling certain processes, putting things in place so that it is easier for innovation to thrive from a culture perspective, and the innovation life cycle to go through, right? Right from an idea generation stage to an idea validation stage to a proof of concept stage. From a proof of concept, if it is proven that it's a good idea, taking it to the market validation phase, and then from a market validation to a full-fledged scale out, right? Or an acceleration and a scale out, right? So all of these aspects, enabling that they happen seamlessly within the organization, is the role of innovation management. Okay, so the third question is, how can boards manage the concern around innovation? I think I already answered that question in my talk earlier when I said, that companies like GE, Procter and Gamble, and AMD, they have innovation or equivalent committees on their board. So, by ensuring that board has an oversight on the innovation happening within the organization, and hence on the innovation management processes and the governance around innovation within the organization, I think if they do that, then that's an extra element of uh, innovation. There's an extra element of ensuring that there is nothing that is getting missed out, and the company is not caught by surprise because of changes that are happening. Right? We all know the story of how Blockbuster, right? Which was doing so well, and after we had Netflix come and take, introduce digital content sharing, uh, completely disrupted the market, right? So, uh, what companies need to be wary of today is not, how to deal with competitors in the same business area, but they have to really look at what adjacent areas of their business can their, of their domain or business area can their business get disrupted, right? If you're watching just your traditional competitors, you may not catch some of the disruptions coming from elsewhere, and therefore, and today the rate of change in the market is very, very high. It is impossible for one person, the CEO, to be, to be able to get, bring in all the leadership and the vision that is required for the company. I think it's extremely important for more people uh, within the context of a company to be looking at what should be the innovation portfolio of the company, right? So that is the role that the boards can play, in my opinion. So there's a question that says, can you give more examples uh, thought integration in technology innovations? Because I talked about thought integrators. Okay. So I let me back up a little bit and say, I talked about need for multiple technologies, multiple domains, expertise in a single solutioning environment, which makes it very complex, right? That is one way to look at it. Um, uh, and I gave you one example of predictive analytics for underground power cables. That requires a power expert who understands how the signal for the cable is measured and things like that, and what could go wrong. You're predicting failure. When can the cable fail, and we want to make sure corrective measures are taken, preventive measures are taken before any failure happens. So, and then you need, because there is technology involved, there is software involved, you need a software expert, then prediction. So there's a lot of analytics involved there. You need somebody who's a statistical expert in that area. So that's one good example. Actually, I'll go a little beyond this question and talk about something which is there in my book on innovation management as well. Today, I believe the boundaries of subjects themselves are blurring, right? Because of these multifunctional requirements. And not only that, I believe that when we talk about bringing diverse skills on the table from a solution creation perspective, we benefit if we put science and art together. Right? I was in Oxford last year at this time. I was as a part of a scholarship. I was doing a course on science, innovation, and policy at Oxford University. And basically that was more of a experiential course where we were exposed to the innovation ecosystem of UK and the clusters, innovation clusters, and so on. But I came across a very interesting project that was happening. There's a project happening there which is called Ingla ID, and there are people. They are trying to map the landscapes of UK, and essentially it's a big data project, right? They have artists working on those projects, artists who are able to visualize the landscapes over periods of time, and based on that they are actually able to make no they are able to visualize pattern changes within the landscape, and then their input is then taken by the technology experts to validate within the data sets that they are looking at. I mean, I'm just oversimplifying this. It's probably more complex than that. But it suffices to say that that project has a mixture of technical people, archaeologists, artists who do painting, all working together to solve a business problem. There are tons of examples like this, right? Where science and art can work together to create novel solutions. An important aspect about the right brainers of the world, of the artists, is that they tend to approach problems very laterally, right? And they may sometimes introduce topics which can be analogically derived to technical subjects, like in this case of the landscape mapping. So that's a subject which I've been looking at recently, and I feel that we're going to see more of that mixing happening as we move forward. Okay, I don't see any further questions, so I'm going to take the time to thank all of you who have joined the session today. Thank you very much, and I would also like to take this opportunity to thank IEEE and IEEE Women in Engineering, and also we've been supported by a very able team to enable this hangout to happen without any problems. A team led by David Stang. So, David, thanks to you as well. And have a great day, everybody. Thank you very much. Bye.